Yo, hey guys, Weeks here. Back at it with another video. This is going to be our build guide for our EQ Slayer character that I've been playing in Legion League. This felt like a really good character for like a League start. I would definitely recommend it for League start, or if you're going to play hardcore. It's been very tanky, all leveling. We are currently level 85 on the character, which I know is kind of low, but we basically have decided that the rest of our levels are pretty much going to be life and a little bit of damage. So we can just go ahead and put out a build guide now, because not much is really going to change on the character. So to get into it, as far as like the tree is concerned, there's been some changes since the build diary that we put out. We switched like some attack speed for physical damage. So we basically take a bunch of physical damage. We've picked up more weapon range with the Brinksmanship, Ribcage Crusher. We get a bunch of Fortify effectiveness, more range here as well, and then just life regen, resist, all that fun stuff. Basically, pretty cookie cutter build for a melee character, to be honest. Our Ascendancy, we've changed this up as well. We started with Impact, so just even more range and area of effect. We then went to Endless Hunger to get the Overleech and cannot be stunned, also immune to bleeding while leeching. When we take Brutal Fervor, that's going to be all the time, which is great. Brutal Fervor also makes it to where you do more attack damage, your Overleech never goes away, you get more attack speed, and reduce damage taken. Lastly, we went Headsman. Headsman is just really nice for the cannot take Reflective Physical, everything else is kind of a bonus. You could also go Bane of Legends if you would prefer, instead of Impact. I would recommend that if you're going to kill, let's say, Uber Elder or Shaper Farm, or if you just want to map really quickly so you can get levels really fast. I would drop Impact and take Bane of Legend just for the extra movement speed and attack speed, but it's really up to you. All these points are really good, which is why the Slayer is such like a viable option. Alright, next up is going to be the gear. The gear is pretty cheap to start out with. You can invest more and more and just really beef up the Slayer EQ character if you would like. We use the Moroi weapon, just two-handed mace. It got reworked in Legion, so it has the socketed spells are supported by Pulverize as well, which makes it like a pseudo 7-link, which it kind of was before, but it was with a different gem. For helm, we're using Devota's Devotion. Just a great all-around helm, gives you attack speed, gives you chaos resist, movement speed, dexterity. Just really nice. You also could craft a rare helmet with pristine fossils and jagged fossils, which we'll probably look to do sometime in the future. But the really important part is just the helmet enchant. Just increases the time significantly before your damage actually goes out. Next, we go to the amulet. The amulet, you're really looking for like stats. Stats are pretty hard to come by on this build. A lot of it is intellect and dex, or you're just really starved for as you go around the tree. We really stay in this strength area, so we don't get too much int or dex. There are these nodes you could pick up here, but I feel like if you can get it on gear, you probably should. So our amulet, just a lot of stats, flat physical, also adds a lot of damage, life, resist, and you want to be able to craft the increased area of effect with area damage. As far as rings go, it's kind of the same thing. You're looking for resist, stats, life, flat physical, and you want to be able to craft the minus total mana cost of skills. This is our other ring, which is basically the same thing. Resist, life, flat fizz, minus mana cost. So our mana cost is 20 instead of, what was that, 34? So it just helps a lot. It reduces it, by almost half. Chest, you could use a Comb's Heart here and run like some rare boots. This is what we were doing before, but we decided we wanted to use Comb's Roots instead, so we didn't have to worry about temp chains and that kind of stuff. And it just also helps with Uber Elder not getting slowed. So for our chest, same, again, stats, you want to look for the life with percentage life roll, which is just like a random drop with Legion, I believe. But basically you can just search it. If you put those into PoE Trade or the trade site, then you'll be able to find all the chests that have the flat life with increased life, which is just a lot better because it kind of rivals the combs a little easier. And you can craft life in addition to that with the increased armor and evasion. So you get a lot of armor, a lot of evasion, we get some more attributes, which has been an issue, and more resist, just to have all around good stuff there. Next we have our belt, same kind of thing, double strength roll, life, resist, and we crafted increased damage. You could also craft like Flask are more effective. You could do that as well, or like movement speed. Gloves, kind of the same as all the other gear. You're really just looking for resist, life, and craft life on it. You also could get some spiked gloves to get more increased physical damage. That's as far as it goes with the gear. We're using the Seething, Divine Flask of Heat. We're using Lion's Roar for knockback, and Basalt Flask take less damage. Onslaught Flask, or Silver Flask to get Onslaught, and Quicksilver. We're using Curse Removal and Bleeding. We are immune to bleeding most of the time, so probably would switch one of these to Shock if you're really worried, but I just want to make sure I'm not dying to bleeding. So we have that. But really all you need is 1, 2, remove freeze, bleeding, curses, and you could sub one of those out for shock. As far as jewels in the tree go, we're using a Watcher's Eye with your hits intimidate for 4 seconds while you're using Pride. And we're using Pride in the build, so that works out. And you need 1 jewel with physical attack damage leeches mana. This is kind of a terrible jewel. It's only like 2 stats that we actually use. But it gives us that leech, so we don't have to go over here for the leech. We get leech over here for life, and we don't have to go this way for the mana. You also could get a mana roll or mana leech roll on one of your rings, but I really wanted to devote all my prefixes to things I want, like life, flat physical, and the mana cost, / the increased area of effect and area damage. So that's why I didn't craft it on my rings. You also could find it on gloves, but I couldn't find any. So if you can find on one of those slots, definitely get it. If not, just pick up a jewel. They're usually pretty cheap, and that should be all you need to sustain your mana. Lastly, we'll talk about next we'll talk about the gems. So we're using Earthquake, Vault Earthquake with Brutality, so we don't do any elemental or any chaos damage. So don't use the Ziri's Promise or anything like that. Next, we're using Less Duration, Fortify, and Shockwave support. We're using Fortify because we get all the effectiveness there. You could switch Fortify into your Leap Slam and run like damage on full life instead. You could run this. It's a more multiplier, or more of a multiplier than Fortify is. So that's one way you could do it, but I felt like I didn't want to have to worry about sustaining it with Leap Slam, so I didn't do that. And then if you get a 6 link, add in melee physical damage. Either one of these really. You could add in melee on full or melee phys as your 6 link, and then switch Fortify out for damage on full life if needed. Next, we're talking about Leap Slam. We're using Leap Slam with faster attacks and Fortify. You could drop the Fortify if you're just using it on Earthquake, but I really didn't find like another gem that was useful. Our Leap Slam cost 0 mana, so it's not like using Blood Magic would even be worth it here. There's really like nothing I could think of that was really relevant that I would want. You could do like Culling Strike maybe, but it just didn't seem worth it. I'd rather have the consistency of having Fortify. I'm jumping for several screens through packs. I want to have Fortify that whole time where I'm not always Earthquaking. And then finally we have Blood Rage. So for our chest setup, we're using Enlighten with Pride. Like we talked about earlier, we're using Pride for the Watcher's Eye so we can Intimidate. You can get Intimidate other ways, but I feel like this was maybe one of the easier ones. You could use the Intimidate belt, or you could use Tomb Fist, but we're going this route. It just seems clean, seems easy, and the Watcher's Eye is pretty cheap. It was like 30 chaos at the time we made this video. We're also using Blood and Sand, and we're basically staying in Blood stance, so we're just doing more damage and having less area of effect. Then we're using Flesh and Stone, which just maims enemies that are nearby. So we get that extra maim damage, and then we're linking it up with maim to get the more multiplier on top of that. That when it maims, it actually maims with the support and not just a like maim for the sake of maim. It actually has the multiplier on it. So just an extra way to get some more damage out of it. Last layer gems, we're using Enfeeble, Cast and Damage Taken, Molten Shell, and Enduring Cry. So this is just basically when we get hit for a huge amount, we'll activate our Molten Shell, and we'll activate Enfeeble. We also use Lion's Roar, so that'll give us a bunch of armor, which just beefs up the Molten Shell even more. As far as Pantheon goes, I'm using Soul of Solaris just to try to take less physical damage and also get hit less by area of effect. I didn't really feel like any of these other ones were really worth it, So we're just going for Soul of Solaris. You could go Soul of Lunaris just to speed up like mapping. And we're also using Soul of Gruthkul. I feel like if we're getting hit a bunch, then we should have this 5% all the time, and I'll eventually upgrade it so we have the extra 8% attack speed. Okay guys, so that's going to pretty much wrap up the build. So like I was saying, really enjoyed playing this build during Legion League. Please let me know if you guys have any questions or comments about the build itself. I'll be answering in the comments. If you enjoyed this build guide, please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys next time.